even hearing your presentation today, I have not heard any arguments that I consider to be against theism. I have heard many arguments against religion. And I would have to put a finer point on that, against bad religion. And there's bad religion. In fact, many of the atheist writers seem to imply that since some religions make people do very bad things, that those religions must be bad religions. I wonder if the reverse would be true. A religion that makes people do really good things, would they say that's a really good religion? Would they recognize there's goodness in it?
Harris on Jainism.
Harris talks about Jainism, right? And he does say positive things about Jainism, but he obviously is not going to convert, right? And I'm sure he doesn't believe anything's true, you know. But that's a good point. I mean, Sam Harris in his book Letter to a Christian Nation does say positive things about the peaceful ethics of Jainism. But your question about would any observation make me change my views about God, and what I'd have to say is my views are always in flux. I never did camp out on just one position. I've changed my theological views many times. I have always remained within the theistic camp, but not because I've predefined those borders. I haven't decided somewhere I'm going to be a theist no matter what. I can change anything else, but I can't change that. To change from being a theist to an atheist, I would have to observe things that would be as convincing to me as the kinds of evidence that someone would have to present to tell me that all of my life has been a dream of an alien, you know. In other words, that God, that I don't exist. And I realize that sounds crazy to a person who doesn't believe God for me to say. And I cannot explain to you how God has been proven in my life. I hate to use an illustration that will offend the religious and offend the atheist both, but I sometimes think this way. Frankly, it's an illustration that really does come from the Bible, although people will be shocked by it. And that is that I sometimes, when I talk to an atheist or hear the arguments made of this, I feel like a man who is happily married and has an intimate sex life with his wife, listening to a man who never got to first base with a woman, and who says, therefore there's no such things as orgasms. And I say, oh, there really are. No, I just don't believe it. I have these arguments against it. Well, I don't care how many arguments you have against it. You're going to have to go further than that to convince me there's no such thing as that. And the truth of the matter is, the reason I say there's biblical reason for that illustration is that God compares his relationship to his people with the intimate relationship of a man and a woman. And I do believe that it's an interpersonal thing that cannot be communicated in its entirety from one person to another. It can be, one can try to explain it, one can try to show that it's rational to believe it, but what one knows from firsthand experience and relationship is something that's not transmittable and is only to be found when someone says, okay, the evidence is adequate for me to look into this and to seek it out and find out if it's true. I have done that. And because I did that, it would take an awful lot to move me from there. I can't imagine what could, you know.
Oh, okay. I probably won't take 3 minutes. But let me just reiterate my appreciation for you having me here this evening and the open-mindedness that you've displayed. But in certain ways, America is kind of this interesting experiment where the question is, can we get people with radically different religious views to live together without killing one another? And I think actually Americans have done a pretty good job on that score, and I think one of the reasons is because of things like this evening, where we choose to talk to one another rather than hate one another. I think that's a good thing. And so I do really appreciate that. There's been a lot of talk recently about the new atheism. There's all these books coming out of Dawkins and Harris and Bennett and various other folks. As far as I can see, there's really nothing new about the atheism. It's the same kinds of arguments that have been around for some time. The atheism itself isn't new. What's actually new is that people are actually buying these books. They're actually reading these books for the first time. And it seems to me that right now in our culture there's a certain openness to atheism that wasn't there before. And I think, of course, that that's a good thing. But it's still the case that the different religious perspectives that are out there, atheism is the one where it's still fairly okay to be openly hostile. I think in a recent poll of Americans, something like 85% of Americans said they would never, ever vote for a political leader who doesn't believe in God. If I ever have a son, and my son adopts my religious views, he won't be allowed to join the Boy Scouts because atheists aren't allowed in the Boy Scouts. Now, imagine if that was the case with regard to Judaism or Christianity. I think people would be outraged about that. But in any event, what I've tried to do this evening is to just try to, using 70s terminology, give you a sense where someone like me is coming from, so that you can sort of see the perspective and what motivates somebody like me to be an atheist. And I guess finally, the last point that I want to make is that although this evening was largely about disagreement, it's also important to keep in mind the amount that we probably agree on and the amount that we concur on. We both, I'm sure, agree that any form of violence in the name of religion or in the name of anti-religion is a bad thing and intolerable. And I suspect there are other things that we agree upon as well. I suspect, I haven't talked to you about this, but my hunch would be that Steve, like me, is distressed by the degree to which our culture sort of celebrates greed and wealth and excess, when at the same time other people in the world are in a tremendous amount of need. I'm driven to the idea that we need to be doing more to help those people, but I'm driven by secular arguments. Steve's probably driven by religious arguments, but we come to the same basic conclusion, and I think that's important to keep in mind as well. Saw the stuff there.
I want to begin by saying I have really enjoyed interacting with Bill. He's very pleasant and very intelligent and a very good spoil for the debate. It is true that we have some things in common, and a lot of those things would be our ethical understanding of things. What we don't have in common is a common basis for having an ethical understanding of things. I do agree that violence and war are horrendous things. Though if I didn't believe in God, and if I only believed in evolution, I would have to say, but isn't that really what it's all about? Isn't the powerful preying upon the weak, isn't that really what nature is about? Isn't that how we all got here? How can I pronounce against it? How can I stand outside of that which created us all and say, that's not good anymore? It was good then, but it's not good now. I can be against greed and covetousness and all that because I do have an ethic that I'm informed from, I would say, from our Creator, that those are things that He does not wish for us to value. But if I didn't know of a Creator, if it's just every man for himself, the survival of the fittest, then for me to accumulate all I can and starve out everyone else there'd be no transcendent ethical objection that we made to it. Everyone can say that's very selfish of you, but I could say, well, why should I care whether you think I'm selfish or not? Isn't it the selfish gene in me? Isn't that kind of what it's all about, really? Is selfishness and preying, the strong preying on the weak? That's all we really have if we don't have a Creator, because the only alternative to a Creator that we know of is evolution. And if evolution is the answer instead of the Creator, then there is no moral high ground that we can stand on to criticize anyone's ethics or anyone's behavior. In fact, those that act the most like nature, which is bloody in tooth and claw, are the ones who are most aligned with nature, most aligned with reality. We have civilized ideas, and where do we get them from? Where do we get the idea of human rights or animal rights? Someone said, one of the biggest problems we have with animal rights is we can't convince the animals to observe animal rights. We're the first species to come up with the idea that lesser animals have rights. Why? Because we have a soul. We have a spirit. Because we were made and informed by a mind and a spirit who cares about things and has let us know in many respects what He cares about. Some of this knowledge is intuitive, and some of it is, we would say, revealed in Holy Scriptures and so forth. As far as whether the Bible is the correct Holy Scriptures or not, I am fully convinced that it is. I'd be prepared to give many arguments for that, but I don't have time for that. That's another debate. But I truly thank Bill for being here, and thank you so much.